continues to grow, as we know, and at the center of that growth is Greenville.
The city has been expanding for years, but how are city leaders managing the influx of businesses and people while also keeping the core values of so many South Carolinians? I sat down with Mayor Knox White to learn more about the growth and the growing pains of Greenville. Greenville continues to grow. It continues to be a place to move to visit. But as mayor, how would you describe the current state of Greenville?
We're in a very fortunate part of the country. Interstate 85 in the southeast, this whole region has population increase, people coming here for jobs and opportunity. That's the really good news, is that this is seen as an opportunity place for young people, an opportunity place for retired people. That's the good news. The tougher part for us is managing the growth. And I will say this in terms of the city of Greenville, we wake up every day and that's what we talk about and think about, is how do we manage the growth. We don't get it right all the time, but we try mighty hard. But it's kind of like riding a fast-moving horse. We just try to keep ahead of it best we can. But I would say all of our strategies of kind of the big things we're doing, if you go back to, why is the city doing that? The answer usually is because of growth, or anticipation of growth in this area. You talked about how that can be difficult to manage sometimes. With growth comes growing pains. One of the biggest ones right now is the Woven project. It's getting quite a bit of pushback at this time. The Planning Commission voted against it. You voted in favor of it. Why was that? I think that's an example of things that sometimes get misunderstood. Mayor White says much of the misunderstanding surrounds the design and size. The Woven project is a proposal for a large-scale apartment complex and commercial space in the heart of the West End Village along Pendleton Street. Mayor White says these renderings handed out in the neighborhood are fake. This is the real design. He says the city is now working with developers and neighbors to make necessary changes in size before another city council vote. But he sees this type of project as necessary in a neighborhood that's on the rise. And the only way to see affordable housing in a neighborhood like that is to have a project very much like that, where you can have a 20% set aside for affordability. Mayor White worries if it's not this project, the alternative is million-dollar condos. Because the land is so valuable. So anytime we have a chance to push that aside and get something that's more mixed use, affordability being a part of it, and get it in the right scale, then that's something I support. As far as the critics of that project, I've seen it quoted as classic gentrification. I've talked to a city councilor who said the biggest concern was it doesn't maintain cultural and historical aspects of the neighborhood. So what would be your response to them? It's an area that's going to have very expensive housing unless we can get someone to build a good rental property that has below market rates for retail, for restaurants, shops, and stores, and has a percentage set aside for affordable housing. And the only way to do that is a project kind of like this. Where I'm trying to work with that project is try to get the scale right, to get the number of floors right, to make it fit in better with the neighborhood. But this is an area that just, I have to remind everybody, 10 years ago there were broken windows and businesses that didn't exist there. So this is all about the revitalization area, kind of the growing pains you run into when you have a project like that, in a neighborhood like that that's changing very fast. A lot of it too, the comparison to the 2040 plan. Do you think it aligns with that? It absolutely does. The whole 2040 plan says you should take certain nodes, they call them, certain sectors, and encourage people to build there, to build 4 or 5 stories. And again, I would quickly say, no, you don't build 10 stories, but 3 stories, 4 stories, I think that's about right. And the whole 2040 plan is to have areas that are nodes where you would do this. And of course, Pendleton Street, in the middle of a commercial district, which is what this is, that's exactly where you have to build in a little bit of density. You do it there so you don't have sprawl in all directions elsewhere. And that's where the core idea behind the 2040 plan is to focus on what are correct areas to have a little bit more density. But even when you have density, it's still an issue of, on that particular spot, what's the right scale? And that's now the question developers in the city are working to determine. Mayor White says the city council will vote on the changes developers are currently making. If passed, it will go then to the Planning Commission for final approval.